Hello and welcome back to our channel Forensic Science Public Desk India, and now we are going to learn about the forensic entomology. Forensic entomology is the new topic which is included in our forensic medicine syllabus of UGC NET Forensic Science, and as part of today's video we are going to learn about the introduction and also the classification of various insects which are forensically important. So introduction. So first we are going to focus on the definition. Forensic entomology is the study of insects and related arthropods for the investigation of death. That means there is a relation between the insects feeding on the dead bodies. So once the human die or any animal dies, these insects are going to infest on this dead corpse. So this is an ecological process actually. So the dead, once body is dead, it should be decomposed and it should be getting mixed into the soil according to the nature's behavior. So for this particular thing there are so many processes involved, and entomology process is one of the important thing. Insects is going to infest the body, that means they are going to feed on this decomposed material, their organic material, and they are going to survive on that. What is the survival of insects? That means laying the eggs and increasing the race of the insects. That means once the eggs are laid, they will be becoming the larvae, and from larvae it will be becoming pupae, and from the pupae we will be getting the adult insects. So this is the life cycle of the insect. The stage of life cycle of an insect and also its correlation with the stage of decomposition of the body is going to be very important for us to estimate the post-mortem interval of the dead body. It is important in homicidal deaths in providing information such as time since death, cause of death, place of death, etc. So all these things can be predictable as well. So we can identify this. How we can identify? There is a lot of research which is already conducted on insects. So this particular subject which is already known as entomology. This is a pure entomology, and not only this, in zoology also there is a study, so classifying all the organisms as part of taxonomy. So taxonomists are identifying various types of organisms, new organisms, various types of species, and all this identification, whatever it is there, that is going to help us in identification of various insects. Once we are identifying the potential insects which would be present in the dead body, we can also study their life cycles. So once we study their life cycles, how they are going to habitat, we can predict their habitation and the types of insects which are present on the dead bodies. Insects are one of the significant factors in balancing the ecosystem of environment by feeding on the dead corpse of animals, decompose the material on to the earth. So this is the common point. So this is actually the process which is occurring using this natural procedure of insects being feeding on the dead corpse. We are going to use this for forensic investigation. Okay. History of forensic entomology. Forensic entomology was first documented in China in 1235 AD in the book entitled The Washing Away of Wrongs, which is written by the author Sun Tzu. So in this book it is mentioned about the first evidence of insects as the indicators of the murder. So there was a murder case which was discussed in this book. The story comes like here. There are some farmers who are working in the fields, and one murder occurred in the same fields, and it is suspected that any of the farmers would have murdered him. So this all farmers are called in front of the jury, and the expert, forensic expert, who is regarded as forensic expert, is also called, and the expert has said all the farmers to keep their sickles on the ground in the sequence. So once they are arranged in this row, they have identified the flies are attracted to only one sickle but not to others. So this indicates that there is some kind of serological evidence, serological materials which are generally attracting the insects, and that's what they have identified, and they suspected this farmer who is holding the sickle is the suspect, and finally he made as accused. In 1668, Francisco L. Reddy studied about the blowflies infestations. He refuted the hypothesis of spontaneous generation. So he has some wrong perspective on the blowflies. So he imagined that whenever the body dies, it decomposes. From the decomposed bodies, the larvae will come. So these larvae ultimately they are going to become the adult. So this is what he thought. He thought it is the source of the birth of this particular insects. If there is no dead body, there is no insect. So like that he thought, but it is not the thing. He thought, he called it as spontaneous generation from the dead bodies. From there only we are getting the insects. That is what he has identified. Then later on we are having French scientists Bergeret, Braulodel, Johanwich, Magnan introduced forensic entomology to Europe during 19th century, and there are two things which we have to learn about here. Bergeret is a scientist who has studied on a baby dead body. So a baby was murdered in 1848 somewhere around, and this baby's dead body is found in a chimney. In 1850, there was a 2 years gap. So this scientist has conducted the autopsy of this particular baby's body, and they have seen infestation of various insects inside the body, and they have approximately estimated what was the time since death, and they have identified it to be 1848. So you can read that case study, it will be interesting and maybe asked in the exam as well. Magnin is one of the scientists who has studied the infestation of insects on body at various stages. So not only on body, on various animals they have conducted the studies, and they studied what are the various stages of this particular insect development and how it is correlated to the decomposition of the bodies. That is what the first study which is conducted, and then it has been used, it has been practiced since then, and forensic entomology came into the action. Then in 1898, Dr. Murray Motter examined the stages of decomposition and insect succession on the buried human remains. So this is what the research which he has done, and he has introduced these techniques in US, and forensic entomology was part of the investigation then after. In 1963, Dr. Jerry Payne conducted decomposition research with pig carcasses, and he has written very good literature related to the forensic entomology, and that particular book is regarded today also for various types of references. And currently University of Tennessee is still conducting various types of forensic entomological researches and various types of insects, and how they are what is their behavior, and how their part is very important in determination of various aspects related to death investigation. Principle: colonization of various species insect succession is predictable. So once you are learning about a particular species, let's say it's a blowfly, so when blowfly will be able to identify the body once the death occurred, so how early it will reach the dead body, and at what particular time they will be laying the eggs, and how these eggs are going to develop, what is the time period between the laid and the formation of larvae. So on larvae, what are the other stages which are there, and how long they are going to take place. So all these studies are dependent. So when the larvae is formed, what would be the decomposition stage of the body? When the larvae is in its advanced stage, what is the decomposition of the body, whether it is bloated or it is still in a fresh state. So all these things can be studied. That means we are going to predict the life cycle and also correlate it with the decomposition. Developmental stage of each type of insect is also predictable. The insects that can assist in forensic entomological investigation includes blowflies, flush flies, cheese skippers, heat skin beetles, rope beetles and clone beetles. So all these insects are very commonly found in the dead corpse, and they are going to help us in investigation of the dead bodies. In order to understand the types of insects, basically we have to understand about the actual taxonomical classification of the insects. So first we can see kingdom Animalia. Under that we are having the phylum Arthropoda. Under Arthropoda we are having various subphylums again. So Trilobita, which is extinct, Uniramia, which is there, and here in this particular Uniramia only we can see the forensic important insects. And then Chelicerata, in this particular thing we can see various types of insect, but it is not forensically important, but forensic toxicological insects we can see under this. And crustacea we can see, in which normal insects will be there, sea insects will be there like the crabs, crayfishes, etc. So coming to the Uniramia, it is subdivided into various classes. So in those classes it is divided according to number of the legs. So insect is having number of legs. So if it is hundreds of legs, then it is centipedes, and very minute legs are there, then it is millipedes. So like that we can see class Chilopoda, Diplopoda, and this particular insecta will be coming under the Hexapoda. So after this under insecta, again it is subdivided into various orders again. So these are the orders: Orthoptera, Dipthera, Lepidoptera, Hymenoptera, Coleoptera. So forensically important orders are the Diptera and the Coleoptera. So under this particular orders, what are the various families which are important, again I am going to discuss in the further slides. So not only this, so first particular order insects which are coming are the flies. Flies are the first insects which are invading the body. They will be laying the eggs, and their larvae will be developed, and while they are in the larval stages, the Coleoptera will also be invading the dead body. So the sequence, it will start with the flies and it will end with the beetles. And not only this, when this larvae of beetle and the flies will be there, Hymenoptera insects, that means bees, wasps, especially ants and mites, will also be invading the body, searching for the food, and they will be eating the larvae of this particular flies and all. And moths will be attracted to certain kind of stages like adipocere, and they are just attracted, they are not going to feed as particularly certain kind of food materials. So classification of insects, we can see first one as flies and second one as the beetles. So this is how they look like, and these are very common in our environment. Daily we will be seeing all these things. And flies, we can say the order to be Dipthera, and the common examples which we can see for the flies are blowflies, flush flies, and house flies and cheese flies. So this one which we are seeing here is a house fly. Then we can say beetles, and its order is Coleoptera, and we can see common beetles like rope beetles, sister beetles, and carrion beetles. So these are the two important orders of insects which are going to play important role in forensic entomology, and further we are going to learn about their classification itself. Flies and beetles specific for forensic entomology. Other than these, mites, moths, wasps, ants, bees are also seen in some cases. So when it is coming to the case of mites and wasps and moths and ants or bees, so these particular insects does not actually eat or feed on the dead body or the material which is there in the dead body. They are actually going to feed on the larvae which is given by the flies and the beetles. Okay, so actually they will be having their food materials in those larvae. To those larvae, these particular moths and wasps and mites will be attracted, and it will be misleading the case, it will be misleading the investigation of death using the entomology. So experts need to understand that these particular insects are dependent upon the larvae of flies and beetles. So parts of an adult blowfly, if you understand, we are having three major parts: head, thorax and abdomen. So head part, it is having a compound eye, arista, antenna. So for antenna we are having various types of segments. Maxillary pulp will be there and pseudotrachea will be there, labellum will be there. So using labellum the food will be taken by it, and pseudotrachea will be taking the other necessary food materials. Compound eye will be there. So this is one of the common part for majority of the blowflies. And the thorax part is very important for determination of any kind of species. Thorax part is basically divided into three parts. So before learning about thorax part, we have to name some important things. So the upper region which is visible to our eye, this will be called as dorsum. So the upper part which is visible is known as dorsum, and below ventral part whatever it is visible, that is called as sternum. So this is ventral and this is dorsal, and sideways whatever you are able to see, that is called as pleurum. So this is a sideways part. Okay. So at the thoracic part, it is divided into three major types. So instead of confusing you using this one, I will give extra labeling. So one is called as a prothorax, and other is called as mesothorax, and this one is called as metathorax. So prothorax is towards the head, and it is having some important parts related to the head and the connection between head and the thorax. So mesothorax is the actual part where we are having two important things. One is the leg, middle leg will be there. So there are three legs. Prothorax will be carrying the first leg, and mesothorax will be having the middle leg, and the metathorax will be having the last leg. So this is how the structure of the insect will be there, and we can see two more points here, that is anterior spiracle and the posterior spiracle. So remember this point. In next video I am going to learn about the developmental stages of this life cycle stages of insects. In that particular part we are going to focus on the spiracles, how spiracles are going to play important role in various developmental stages of the larvae. So in this particular things we can see legs. Legs are having five important major parts: femur, you can see tibia, you can see spur, you can see tarsus, you can see. So here it is mentioned 4, and the last part will be the last one, fifth one. Okay. So these are the various parts of this particular insect, and wings are located on the mesothorax upper part, and based on the wings, so wings you can see there are various veins. So these are the veins which are present on the wings. These wings which are having the veins, these are divided, subdivided, and then they are having membranous substance. So depending upon the design and depending upon the length and how they get divided, these particular species will also can be studied in various types. Anyhow, we are not going to focus on wings. It is completely deep into the entomology subject. Sorry. Important families of Diptera. First one is Calliphoridae. Calliphoridae is one of the important families of Diptera, very commonly found in the dead body scenes, and Calliphoridae are having very important species in them. So one of those we can see Vicina and Vomitoria, and then we can see Lucilla sericata. This one is the Lucilla sericata, which is visible in green color, and Vomitoria will be in blue color. This particular insect can identify the dead body from 10 miles. So don't think that this particular insect, this particular fly will be dependent only on dead body. This particular insect can detect any kind of its food from 10 miles. Its food is not only dead body, fruits and sweet materials and decomposing materials and fecal matters, etc. All these things can be observed. And one which is specific for dead body and its consumption is related to Sarcophagidae family. Sarcophaga bursia. So this particular insect, it is having a grey color and its stripes can be seen on its thorax for identification of the species, and they are having a prominent wings which are separated and which are very prominently visible in mixed with the color. And this insect can seen at the first type. So this is the first insect to arrive on the dead body. Then Mucidae family we can see. Mucidae is a common housefly. This particular Musca domestica is a common housefly which can be seen in our houses of feeding on various types of food materials, fresh food or decayed food or whatever it is. This particular fly will be commonly present and feeding on all those, laying the eggs. The speciality of Diptera is laying the eggs of 200 to 2000 at once. So any of the insects which are belonging to this families will be laying the eggs from 200 to 2000. It is not compulsory that one particular will be laying for only 200 or something like that. It depends upon the environment and the conditions. Then Cypsidae we can see. Cypsidae is having a prominent wings which are separated, and its behavior is waving the wings when it is lying on the food, and its abdomen and thorax and the head part are completely divided into 3 different parts, and it is feeding on the dead body in the intermediate levels, and it is also one of the insect invading the body. Then we can see Piophilidae. So hump structured back will be there. So it's a back, you can see it is a hump like thing will be there for this, and this insect is very small in size, and this particular insect is a basically food pest. So in decomposed food materials or the food materials which are having the eggs laid by this particular insect, you can see the larvae of this insect. So generally this is also called as cheese skipper. That means you can see this insect commonly pesting or infecting the cheese food materials or on the cheese. Then we can see Fanidae. So this is also a small insect comparable with the Piophilidae. So this particular insect is commonly seen on latrine and fecal matters. So they will be feeding on the digestive materials of the dead body. So they are interested in those materials, and the larvae which will be present, which will be seen in digestive system, are generally belonging to the Fanidae family. Then we can see the Spiroceridae. So this is also one of the common insect, and it is a dung fly actually. So it is also going to feed on the dead bodies. So this is also present in the intermediate levels, so that's why it is mentioned in the Dipthera. So these are the various important families of Dipthera which are feeding on the dead body. Then we can have the parts of an beetle, and there are 2 types of beetles. So let's go for parts of the beetle first. So here you can see the parts of the beetle. It is having generally 3 types again, 3 parts again. So head part will be there, thorax part will be there, and the abdomen part will be there. So head part will be having some important parts like mandible, you can see labrum, you can see the parts which are actually given for eating. Okay, they are not for suction of the food material or licking of the food material as like the particular Diptera. In Coleoptera family, in Coleoptera order, you can see this particular parts to be involved. Maxillary pulp and antenna are there. So antenna generally it is having 11 segments. So some species will be having less segments than this, and you can see three legs on each side. That means it is hexapoda, having a completely 6 legs. Okay, so hexapoda, it means it is for each leg it is having 5 segments again. That means the femur tibia, and the tarsal claws, tarsifoot, tarsal spurs, etc. All these parts will be there in its legs. And the wing can also be seen. There are 2 types of wings. One is the forewing. So this one is the forewing, which is called as elytra. wing casing. This is a wing casing which will not be used by the insect for flying, yet else it will be used for protection of the actual wing. So this is the actual membranous wing which is made up of chitin proteins, chitin, and then the wing will be folded inside, and upon this this elytra will be coming. Then we have seen dorsum and sternum and pleuron in the flies. Here also we are having the similar parts, but it will be called as differently. Terstum and the sternites, pleurites, it will be called as ites. Okay, and elytral marks will be seen on the elytra. Elytra means it is the case, wing case. Then we are having a thorax part which is divided into three parts as like the flies. The first part will be called as pronotum. So first part will be called as pronotum. Then mesonotum. Then the metanotum. So these are the three parts of our this particular Coleoptera family. So for protonotum you will be having the front leg, and mesonotum you will be having the middle leg, metanotum you will be having the last leg. So for mesonotum only you will be having the arrangement of this wing and protective case. So these are the various parts of our beetle. So generally this is beetle. So beetle is covered with this protective elytra. So sometimes elytra will be completely covering the abdomen part, or sometimes it is partially covering the abdomen part. So what are the various insects in which we can see partial covering and the complete covering of the this particular elytral things? So there are two types of differentiations, subfamilies under Coleoptera. One is Adiphaga. So this one is Adiphaga, and this one is Polyphaga. So what's the difference is the first segment of the abdomen. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So usually 6 segments will be there. So among these 6 segments, first segment, if it is protruding out and it is very clearly visible as like a complete division, and then this particular thing will be called as polyphagia. Polyphagia are common, and 80% of the beetle species which generally we see are polyphaga. That means whether it is depended upon the normal food material or the wide range of food materials or decomposed food materials, polyphaga is having 80% of its species population. Then Adiphaga we can see here the first segment of the abdomen is having the coxal parts of the legs. So the first and second segment is observed to be covered with this particular coxal parts of the legs. So this is what identifying the Adiphaga can be seen, and this is especially carnivorous. So this especially feeds on the animal tissues and all. It will be dependent on that. Important families of Coleoptera. So in Coleoptera you can see various types of beetles. So generally in general life we will be seeing the beetles. Among them, what are the common beetles which can be found on the dead body and decomposition bodies? So first one is the carrion beetles, which are generally belonging to two different families. One is the Sylphidae family. So here we are seeing the Sylphidae family, and other family can also be seen, that is Necrophonidae. So in Necrophonidae also you can see other types of beetles. So these both beetles are very important in identification of dead body. So generally beetles, first flies will come onto the dead body. When the body is fresh itself, then these particular flies will be laying their legs. Then we have discussed about the grey fly, that is a Sarcophagidae, right? The Sarcophagidae importance is one more thing, one more point is there in that. It also feeds on the wounds, fresh wounds. Then we can see child abuse or the old age people abuse. So when the people are at the home and they are being tortured or they are being physical abused, and their wounds which not treated, which are not getting medicated, in those conditions this particular insects will infest on them, and it can be identified that nobody has cared about the injury and the wounds, especially for in elderly people. So it is found in elderly peoples. So this is the early beetle which will be seen on the dead bodies. And this another family which I said, Necrophagidae. So in this particular family, the beetles will come only when there is less infestation of the larvae of the flies. If more larvae of the flies is there, a lot of larvae is there, at the time the second family of this beetle will not be coming. Sylphidae will only be seen as early beetle arriving at the dead body. Then next one we can see is the roe beetle. So roe beetle speciality is it depends and it depends on the larvae of the flies. So it comes at later stages of the decomposition and it feeds on the larvae. So you can see its morphological arrangement also. The elytra which we can see here, it is exposing two abdominal segments, and it is having the rectangular elytra. So it is having the pattern on them also. So orange red combination with black, you can see its identification, carrion beetles. Roe beetles are long, and this particular elytra is smaller and exposing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments of its abdomen. Almost all segments are exposed, and the size of the elytra and the thorax and also the face part, all these are in the same size, and it is looking in the larger size. Then we can see the clown beetles, which are very shiny and glossy in various colors, you can see, and it is having a ability to hide itself. It will hide its legs and head part into its thoracic and abdominal part, and it will play dead. It will play like a dead insect, and it will try to fool. So like that you can see this one here, it is having the elytra which is of this particular shape, and it is exposing one of the segment at the last. And the speciality of this one is feeding on the larvae and the adult corpse. So it feeds on the larvae of the flies, and also it feeds on the corpse as well. Both it will be seen. It is called as, it is belonging to Hysteridae. Then we can see target beetles. So generally these target beetles are having a very rough elytra. So it is completely covering its abdomen part, and it is its speciality is digging up the material, whether it is a soil or it is a dung or it is a dead body. It will dig up, and it will be able to eat the fresh materials which are present inside, and it also depends upon the fresh things. So this is called as target beetles or Trogidae. Then we can see another beetle that is belonging to hide and skin type. So hide and skin beetles. So Dermistidae. So this particular beetle speciality is it feeds on the materials like skin, nails, hair. Okay. So when this particular things will be left out in the decomposition part, once all the materials like the tissues, digestive tissues, or the organ tissues or the muscle tissues, all these tissues are consumed by various types of insects. The last things which will be left out are the skin, nails and the hair. To digest them, to feed on those decomposition materials, these particular beetles will come. Then you can identify these beetles in the stages of mummification and the complete decomposition in the later stages. Then checkered beetles, you can see these special beetles are also bone beetles, which will be decomposing the bones, generally feeding on the bones. The exact last tissues whatever are there, on those it will be feeding. Not only that, it is having one more important speciality, that this beetle will be feeding on the other beetles larvae as well. If other beetles are coming and they are laying the larvae and eggs, so this particular beetle is feeding on those also. Then sap feeding beetle, we can see sap feeding is called as Nitidulidae. So this one is the last beetle which will be arriving at the scene, and its length will be very small, that is 7 to 8 mm it will be there, and it is feeding on the bony material. So this is one of the last beetle which will be arriving. Then we can see the normal beetle, that is ground beetle, whose size is very normal, and it is the actual beetle structure how it will look like. And these beetles also arrive at the dead bodies, and they also lay the larvae in the intermediate levels comparatively to the other beetles. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you have understood the introduction part, principle, and also classification of various insects, and how we can identify the decomposition of the body depending upon this particular insects. In coming video we will learn about the life cycle and also the collection techniques of forensic entomological evidence. Thank you.